It's all HP's fault. Just being inspired by another wonderful Harris Pilton video. 2 in a fortnight. That's we're being sport rotten. Yeah, mate. How's it going, boy? Birds of Fire. I said Firebird. This is old age. I must have been thinking of Stravinsky's Firebird Suite. Yeah, awesome. Billy Cobham drums. Whoa. Yeah, what a lineup, huh? Rick Laird bass, John McLaughlin guitar, Jan Hammer piano, and Jerry Goodman, ex The Flock. I've got a couple of their albums. Violin. What a lineup. What a lineup. What a fantastic album. And I sort of thought this one wasn't quite, I don't know. But actually, I just played a bit of it. Well, I didn't play it. I looked it up on YouTube and just played the first track on side one, Birds of Fire. And went, shit, I think it's just as good as In a Mounting Flame. Maybe it's more of the same old thing, but this lineup only made these two, right? For all I know, they went on forever and ever and a day. And I don't know, but just the song titles, you know, Celestial Terrestrial Commuters, Sapphire Bullets of Pure Love. Yeah, good stuff. 71 and 72. Yeah, Billy Cobham. Nice stuff. Awesome stuff. It's up there with, it's probably my favourite or the best jazz fusion ever. But then again, you know, Caravanserai, Santana, it's all similar territory. Yeah, what else was I going to say? Yeah, that Soft Cell. I'm pretty sure I did go into that peep show. You know, as soon as I saw it, I thought, oh. I mean, I used to live in those places back in the day. And the thing is, talking about the gentrification of London or Londinium or Lunatic or whatever it was called in, you know, the Celt or whatever. I'm currently rereading a book called London. It's about that thick and it's bloody brilliant. It's the history of London sort of thing, all the way back and up till now. Well, up until 20 years ago. Just what a place. Holy shit. And ugly as all. Fuck London. Didn't like it at all. It reminded me of downtown Sydney or something, you know, like, but minus the palm trees. It's like a fucking shithole. Paris was sort of sophisticated, you know, ooh la la. But there were parts of London I liked. I stayed in Paddington. And it was booked out that year. Couldn't find anywhere. My girlfriend had ditched me and pissed off back off to Germany and left me in the lurch. I had very little money, and I couldn't find anywhere to stay. And I finally found a hotel where they put me up in the attic. It was just like this tiny little box-sized room, but I had somewhere to stay for a few days while I tried to. I managed to get over to Dusseldorf. I've told that story in a vid a couple of years back. Had a lot of. I was a very naughty person. Used to get in all sorts of mischief in those days. But yeah, and it's up in this little attic. And one day I was bored, and I thought, oh, I've got to have a wank. Got to let off some steam, release the pressure valve. And I went down to a peep shop, but they weren't as good as the ones in Sydney. Those porno shops, the ones in downtown central Sydney, man, they were. You know, you always felt a bit guilty going in there, so you'd have a bit of Dutch courage before, you know, but you never up the King's Cross in Sydney. You felt like a real sleaze going in there, but the downtown ones in Central, they were. I don't know. They weren't. They were sleazy, of course, because they're porno shops, but I think it was the fact that there was less pedestrian traffic. That's what it had to be. You sort of could just have a quick look around, no one around, you just duck in, and then sort of shuffle out and head down and carrying a brown paper bag. Yeah, wasn't me. I don't know. I found this on the street. It was in the garbage bin out the front. I'm just going to go and burn it. It's disgusting. Anyway, I'm way beyond that sort of stuff anymore, thank goodness. But yeah, the gentrification of Sydney is just awful. I've been stuck out here in the sticks for 13 years now. Every now and then I get nostalgic and have a look at, those ones where people walk around just showing the streets of a city. I quite enjoy those things, and especially if there's no commentary. I bet a lot of people are wishing this one was one of those. But I looked at a couple around my old haunts in Sydney. I basically, my patch was pretty much North Sydney, where I spent half my working life, and around central, which is what you'd call downtown in New York or something, and they were my sort of spiritual homes in Sydney. I have no interest in the eastern suburbs basically it was just that town hall, central, and then over the bridge, over the coat hanger to the lower North Shore and North Sydney and St Leonard's and at Crow's Nest, where my Pommy grandfather first lived when he came over to Australia before World War One. Ernie Freeman. He used to be a tram driver. They used to run down to Milson's Point and pick up all the ferry passengers and that. But my dad was born in Crow's Nest Mater Hospital, even though we're not Catholics, but that was the only hospital over there at that time. Now I'm waffling. Gentrification. And I saw some the other day and I just went, oh my God, yes, they did that to my beachside, in my nearby beachside suburb of Cronulla Beach, which had that wonderful sleazy rundown feeling. Its peak was in the 1930s when it was a super trendy, lots of nice Art Deco buildings were still there in the 60s when I was a teenager, but they were all starting to fade and be in need of repair. But it had that wonderful sleazy, who gives a shit charm about it. And there was even Bondi, which I don't like because it's a shit little beach, and it's just bullshit, full of tourists. Cronulla's like, 7 miles long, for fuck's sake, you always got room to go and get eaten by a shark there. But, so there was this wonderful sleazy sort of vibe about Sydney in the 70s and the early 80s. And, it started to creep in Sydney. I can only speak about Sydney, I think Melbourne, it would have definitely been the same in Melbourne. And Brisbane's unrecognisable now. Christ, Brisbane, what a fucking shithole that place was. It's the sort of, it was just a bloody dump in a swamp. So in one example of gentrification, it actually worked for Brisbane because it needed something bad. Anyway, I'm waffling. This is turning into 8 minutes. 9 minutes exactly then. So it's not the same. It's just not the same. All the old record shops, you go down and get tanked on some few schooners or rashes, then head off to Waterfront Records and buy the latest imports, or any of the other Red Eye. There's so many great record shops back in the 70s and 80s, into the 90s even, in Sydney. And then, if you're feeling up to it, you and your mate, we'd get a bit more Dutch courage and go into the porno shops. One place I went into one porno shop, and I hadn't been in there before. It was the only time I ever went in there. Went in, I don't know, grabbed something for a quick wank when I got home. And actually, I didn't have to buy porno books anymore once I worked for the post office. In the early 2000s to late 2000s, I worked as a van driver for Australia Post, and you'd be surprised how many porno books you find in those red letter boxes. You know, you're clearing all the mail, and then a whole pile of magazines would fall out. And you go, oh, great. You know, it was great. Anyway, that was back when I was a wanker. I'm not a wanker anymore. I mean, Mazzy hates wankers. You ever seen Mazzy? He found out what the word wanker means, and he suddenly decided everyone was a wanker except himself. What a country this is. Um, Early, need another coffee. HP, it's all your fault. Thank you, thank you. And it's woke me up, that vid. Yeah, 11 minutes. The gentrification. It was just great. I miss Sydney from the late 60s to the early 90s. I just miss it. It's gone. It's gone. It's gone everywhere. Anyway, see ya. Well, there goes Bush.